Okay, good morning and welcome to another FileCloud webinar. Today we're going to be discussing how to configure mass deployment in FileCloud, what are the benefits of mass deployment, and some of the XML configurations in FileCloud. So before we begin, I'm going to be showing you step by step how can we set this up, what is needed for the XML configuration to work correctly, and along the way we're going to be doing a quick test on how does this actually look like in a live testing environment. This is going to give us a better idea of what is the limitations within mass deployments and what can we do with it. This moment, I will share you my screen, which you should be able to see my environment. Okay, perfect. So mass deployment applies to FileCloud Drive and FileCloud Sync. This could be on our MSI or on our single standalone installer. So now, in order to obtain more information in mass deployment, you'll need to access getfilecloud.com/support docs. Once you access the support docs, you're simply going to have to go into mass deployment. Perfect. Now, the first things you got to do in mass deployment, for example, let's say I'm going to do it right now on Windows. If you notice, it tells us that we need to go to this location and create a couple of keys. I'll proceed on doing the exact same steps. You're going to open the registry. We're going to access the local machine, software, and we're going to start creating this environment, right? Now, it is very important that you follow that this must be done prior to installing any of the software. So at this moment, I created the root key, which is called cold lathe. I'm going to follow by creating the sub key, which is called FileCloud. Now I'm going to follow by creating the sub key where you can configure multiple configurations, which is the default CFG or default configuration. Now we verify that this looks accordingly as how the guide states it, right? We have cold lathe, we followed by the next subkey called FileCloud, and then we have the default CFG. Perfect. So now we're going to proceed on looking at what is the supported tables. So in this here, we have a couple of parameters. You can see if it's compatible with Sync or Drive, with Mac Drive or others. Right, at this point, I'm going to do the URL. It's a string value. So when you see the word string, pretty much you have to click on inside the folder, right click it, new, string value. I'm going to call this URL. Right. And you can do something like double click to edit it. You can add HTTPS, double dot, column, / file dot testing.com and save the configuration accordingly. Other than that, you have a couple of options you can set. For example, if you want to enable the updates, if you do not want to enable the updates. If you want automatic logging, if you want to change it, if you want to enable multi-mount, or some other capabilities that you can do. The table is actually pretty big. It will allow you to have multiple configurations that will allow you to do different things depending on what you're trying to do. Now, once this is done, as we have seen here, I'll proceed on doing the installation of the client. This can be, as you see in the table, FileCloud Drive or FileCloud Sync. This can be also for Mac. This changes a little bit depending on the operating system. For example, Mac, you have to modify its library playlist within the preferences, but overall, just make sure that you have added, right? The corresponding things, for example, in Mac is key, URL, and then you just add it. Now in here, we'll proceed with installation. Keep in mind, I do not have FileCloud installed at the moment, at least not any desktop client. Okay, let's wait for this to finish. Okay, that's steps. Perfect. So I'm not going to restore my computer at this point, right? Just to optimize our time during this session. And I'm just going to click finish. But I will proceed on opening FileCloud Drive. FileCloud Drive, there it is, it's new. There we go. As you can see, the moment the FileCloud Drive opened up, I can already see the URL that I created here, right? So what are the benefits of using mass deployment? Number one, you can actually deploy the same configuration to all the computers within your organization, within your Active Directory, for example, right? And have them have predefined environments like, in this case, the URL. You can also do the username. You can enable certain options like what letter are they going to be mounting in case of Drive. There's a couple of things you can do when it comes to mass deployment. But overall, this is how you use mass deployment. What you do is that you avoid your users having to set this up, and you set it up for them. That way, when they log in, they already have access to all the configuration that you have preset it. Now, before I let you go, there's a couple of things very important you need to keep in mind. Mass deployment configurations do not work if the client has already been installed. If the client has already been installed, in order for mass deployment to work, you're going to have to actually go into percentage app data percentage, search for FileCloud Drive, and delete the folder called data. Once you have done that, then you can proceed on applying your mass deployment configuration, and then and only then start the client so that it actually picks up the values, right? You can see also the notes in the guide. Please ensure before adding a value that it's not already present in the configuration, otherwise mass deployment will not be used. Meaning that if you do any change in here, it must not be within the configuration file of the client. And that's pretty much how you set up mass deployment in FileCloud. It's really not hard, but you really need to follow the structure. Otherwise, you might experience some issues. Right now, as you saw it, we just opened it up and it worked the first time. So yeah, at this point, Let's go back into the presentation so we can do a quick review here. So we saw how its capabilities, we saw how to configure it, and we saw its parameters as well. This is the complete support documentation. Now, if there are any questions, please feel free to post them on the chat. I'll open up a quick 3-5 minute window so you can feel free to ask your questions and we can clarify them as we go. Okay, so if I see there are actually no questions. So what follows, right? Well, quick start guide will be emailed to you and everybody who have joined. If you need help, feel free to contact the support team at support@coldlake.com or visit our documentation at getfilecloud.com/support docs. Within our documentation, you're going to find the same guide that I was actually using to follow our mass deployment configuration. Anything you need as well, feel free to reach out to support. As stated before, you will be provided assistance to correct any issue you have or to clarify any of your doubts. That being said, you have a beautiful day and thank you for assisting our FileCloud webinars. Goodbye.